Today we're going to be talking about Nicole Chung's book called All You Can Ever Know. It's a memoir all about her adoption and how she met her biological family. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel today. I'm so happy you guys are all with us. I'm taking a little break from talking about the China adoption because I want to. It's really painful situation with the coronavirus happening in China. So we have a child that we are planning to adopt in China, and that has been pushed off months now, delayed because of the coronavirus. So I decided to talk about this book that we've been reading. We've actually been preparing a lot for China. We've been for adopting from China. We already have 4 children we adopted, so I feel like we should be experts on this, but we have been preparing a lot more for adopting from China. I mean, you can never be too much of an expert on a subject, especially when it involves your children. So we have been studying and researching, and we've been doing all the training they've asked of us. We actually bought the whole entire video series of the Purvis TBIR training, TBRI training, and which means trust-based relational parenting. And it's been really good for me and my husband. We've been learning new things. We've been learning new ways to parent our children. We've been practicing it every day in our home. But I have a 17-year-old, and he is about to become an adult adoptee, or child that was adopted, and I want to know more about what it's like for people when they are older and they were adopted and how it affects them. He is from a different culture. He was born in Thailand. He moved here as a refugee, and he came into the foster care system at 10 years old because of circumstances, the reason why kids go into foster care. Anyways, we adopted him when he was 12, and he's a phenomenal young man, and we've been through quite a journey with him, experiencing what it's like for him to live in a culture that's not his own, being raised by white parents, so to speak. We always joke in our family that we are no longer a fully white family, even though the culture in our house could be considered white, but me and my husband are white. Our oldest 2 sons are Korean refugees, and our younger 2 are Native American people, and they are all awesome. And then our newest child will be Chinese, so we are not completely white, and I don't feel like our culture is completely white either. So, but that being said, I do research things about what Nicole is talking about here. So let me give you the premise of this book and what I liked about it, and let's jump in here. So this book right here is called All You Could Ever Know. It's a memoir about Nicole's experience as being raised in a white family as a Korean person. She was born prematurely. Her birth parents, were unable to care for her for a number of different reasons. I won't spoil the book, but they were unable to care for her, so she was adopted by white parents. She was the only child. She lived in a very small town on the West Coast. It was all white, and she had a very happy childhood, but also at the same time, she always felt out of place. She always felt like she looked different. She always didn't know specifically what it meant to be Korean, and every time she saw Korean or Asian people, her heart leaped in her, and that was interesting for me, and I know that is true with our children. Being Asian for them is really a big deal, our older boys, and our oldest son actually speaks the language that he's native to, the Korean language, and it is a huge part of who he is, and a huge part of who he wants to be. And a lot of the things that she said in this book I could totally relate to, and especially now that we're adopting from China, I really want to be more intentional with our children about cultural enrichment and things like this. Her parents in this book sound like they were awesome parents, honestly, but like many parents do, there's fears of unknowns, and maybe they just wanted to raise her as normal and be a little colorblind, so to speak. And that is one of the topics I wanted to talk about in this video. that we as adoptive parents of children with different races than us, we can't be colorblind to who they are. Like, a part of who my son is a Korean person, a Korean male. Yes, he also has my culture in him, so he doesn't fully fit in with the Korean people as much as he would want to, because he has different culture now. He has like a sarcastic sense of humor and like different things like this, like things that he got from me, but he still cares a lot about their traditions. He cares about the food that they eat. He loves different things and different, like, it really does matter to him. I think it would be an injustice to him to say, well, I don't see color when I see you, I see my child, which is true. I don't necessarily see him as a brown Asian male, you know, like that's not how I see him, but I love the way he looks. I love the way his skin looks. I love his culture. I love everything about my son. Like, he is amazing and he's gorgeous, and it needs to be celebrated. It needs to be honored, and I think that has changed throughout the years, and adoptive parents are getting on the bandwagon now of like, our children need to celebrate these things. They need to be enriched in these cultures and learn the languages that they were born into through birth, their biological connection, and to understand who they are. So she goes on, and she's a little bit older in this book, Nicole is. She's in her early 20s, and she is pregnant, she's married, and she's having her first child, and she is a little fearful of like what the pregnancy will come to, because she was born prematurely, and she wanted to reach out to her biological parents just for the fact, for history's sake, of medical history of like, why was she born prematurely. And I thought this was so interesting. When we finally met our children's birth mom, there were so many like questions that I had for her. Our younger two children, we adopted them from foster care. They were in a different foster home before they moved in with us, so it was kind of like a pre-adoptive placement, so we never got a chance to connect with their birth mom before. But now that she is in our life through some crazy circumstances, this is a totally different story that we can get into later. I have been able to ask her these questions about her medical records and things, and it's been such a big deal for our children to know these things and to be a part of their biological grandma's life and understand like the native culture. And our son wants to grow his hair out now because it's part of his culture. Having long hair in a male native child is a sign of strength, and I support that. That's something that I can get behind. There's just different things that our children need to feel connected, to have healing from their past, and to stay connected. It's a wonder to us sometimes as adoptive parents, like, why does it matter so much to our child? Like, am I not enough for them? Is my culture not enough for our child? Can't we just be like a happy family and ignore these things? But the question is, like, so many people do genetic DNA testings, and like, how many Americans want to know like what country of origin they were from? Like, oh, I'm Irish, so I'm really into like, you know, Celtic music, and like that really soothes my soul. Like, you know, all these hippie movements that go across the board, but like that really matters to us. Like, when my family did a DNA test and we have like 0.1% or whatever, like 1% African in us, I'm like, yeah, like that's awesome. Like, I want to know these things. Like, obviously I'm white, guys. Like, I'm white. I'm not claiming that I'm African. Anyways, so many people are okay. Anyways, it matters to our children to have that experience, and even like the fact of like biological mirroring, of connecting with like biological siblings and their birth parents, to see what they'll look like when they're older, to connect with them in that way, and the normalcy of it, especially from children from a completely different culture than us, is essential to their health and to their well-being. It really is. And I think that Nicole did a really good job in this book of honoring her birth parents and also honoring her adoptive parents, who are her parents. And she just like over and over again just emphasized how they really like loved her and cared for her, but they didn't have a grid for what she needed as an adoptee. And I'm not saying that all adoptees are going to want to know more about their birth parents. There's one of our children that don't necessarily care either way, but all three of the other ones do care, and so it does matter to them. And everyone's just different. Everyone processes things differently, and it just depends on a lot of different circumstances. And I'm not saying like every kid in foster kids should go and meet their birth parents and like all these things, because once there's a reason why they were removed from their home in the first place. So there's also like best judgment on the adoptive parents' side. But we can provide them with a different outlook and a different perspective. With our child from China, obviously, it's going to be more difficult for us to connect this child with their birth family, but it has been done. There is way more research now. Globalization is fantastic. We can find people a lot easier, and there is like limitations, there, but like we can do a search, and we probably will do a search for their birth family so that they can have that connection when they're older. I don't ever want to like prohibit our children from having that experience that they need to heal fully from the trauma that they experience. Like, as an adoptive mother that understands trauma and like how that experience happens to their child, like I can't, like, thinking about my biological mom and my father, I can't imagine not knowing them and not seeing them and knowing what it's like to see what my mom looks like when she's like older than me. Like, I look just like my mother did when she was 32. Like, I know that for a fact. When I'm her age, I'll look exactly like her. Like, that's just because I know. And like, my sisters were so like connected, like our mannerisms are the same. This is like what she said in this book as well, that when she finally did meet her biological sister, she was just so surprised by how similar they were. And they never grew up together. They would do the same things. Like, sometimes she would just like write in the air or write on a notebook with her finger, and it turns out that her biological father and her biological sister did the same thing, and she didn't meet them until she was an adult. So it's just so unique, like, about the nature versus nurture kind of thing. And obviously she gets a lot of things from her adoptive parents too that is a little different than her family. So if you're really interested in this subject at all, I really recommend Nicole Chung's book, All You Could Ever Know. I will put it in the link in the box down here below for you guys, so you guys can go and purchase that if you want, or rent it from your library. That's what I did. It's fantastic, and she did a great job expressing the story but honoring her adoptive parents. Everyone in the book, I still feel like, was honored really well, and that's kind of rare to have a piece of literature like that in the adoptive world, because sometimes you get two extremes to the one extreme to the other, where people are like too flowery or like too like, like hard. Yeah, everyone has different experiences, but she had a super positive adoptive experience, except for, the cultural enrichment part. I would say that she seemed like she was well taken care of as a child, very well loved as a child. But anyways, you should totally get that book and read it. So if you are a adoptive mother or father and you're listening to this video, don't just like push off some of these thoughts that we just talked about, some of these truths that we just talked about today, because they do matter to your child. You don't want them to be going at this alone. And if you can help them with this and connect them to their birth family at a young age and help them be healed up and ready for adulthood, it would be awesome. So more secure adults in the world, the better, right guys? Amen. So if you like this style of video, please just give this video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. I could do more of these in the future if you guys want. I love reading. We read about adoption all the time, so I can recommend books to you guys if you guys want. I'm totally open to that. It's kind of fun for me. And yeah. So thank you guys for watching. Please continue to pray for the coronavirus in China to be just gone forever, and for that crisis just to kind of like dissipate, like gone. Okay, if you guys could do that with me. Who knows where it's gonna be at when I release this video. Hopefully it's already gone. So all right, well, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.